हरि ओम। गजाननं भूतगणादिसेवितं कपित्थजम्बूफलसारभक्षितं उमासुतं शोकविनाशकारणं नमामि विघ्नेश्वरपादपङ्कजम्। Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste. Welcome to this new session on Bhaja Govindam. Composed by the great saint Sri Adi Shankaracharya, Bhaja Govindam is one of the most lucid yet insightful works of Vedanta. It was on one of those days when Shankara and his disciples were traveling that they passed through Varanasi. Along the way, Shankara overheard an old Pandit scholar memorizing Panini's grammar rules. He observed how the Pandit memorized the grammar rules but missed the message of what he was studying, and this inspired a masterful oration by Shankara that we call the Bhaja Govindam. Another name for this text is Moha Mudgara. The word Moha in Sanskrit means delusion, while Mudgara means hammer. Together, Moha Mudgara means the remover or destroyer of delusion. It is called so because it deals a body blow to the excessive value we place on this samsara, that is the world. Tradition has it that the 12 verses following the chorus were spoken by the great master himself. These 12 verses form the first part of Bhajagovindam and are called the Dvadasha Manjarika Stotram, a bouquet of 12 stands of flowers. So inspiring was Shankara's oration that each of his 14 disciples traveling with him added a verse each. These 14 verses form the Chaturdasha Manjarika Stotram. After listening to his students, Shankara blesses the true seekers of all times in the last 4 verses. Thus, together they form the 31 verses of Bhaja Govinda. There may be times during the study when we feel his admonishments of human nature are a bit harsh, but it is imperative that we feel the love that comes through his words, like a parent to the child. He does not mean to belittle us, but is merely trying to shake us out of our slumber, urging us to get over our obsession with the trivialities and get on to our real business in life, to begin our search for that divine self within, to remind us that we are not human beings going through a spiritual experience, but that very spirit going through a human experience. So, together, we must work towards lifting ourselves out of our delusion, our moha, to greater heights of awareness. So, friends, let's go to Dr. Hegdeser and his team who are going to give us insights into the teachings of Adi Shankara. Hegdeser, please.
Om Akhandamandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. It is our privilege to study this text, the Bhaja Govindam, which was given to us by Adi Shankara at the fag end of his life, primarily to bring about spiritual wisdom through devotion. All of us are victims of past conditioning, and about this we are not aware. Ever since we are very small, our parents, our teachers, our religious leaders, our political leaders, the advertisements, the social media conditions us in such a way that we are brought to believe that what we think is absolutely right and there is no other way. As this goes on for such a long time, it becomes so natural for us. There was a man who goes to an astrologer, and the astrologer looks at his palm and he says, you are going to have a lot of medical problems, financial problems, remote relationship problems until the age of 60. And suddenly his eyes brightened up and he said, what will happen after that? And he says, after that, you will get used to it. The problem is we are used to it. We are used to this false conditioning, and therefore we do not believe that we can change the way we think and the way we live our life. great masters and spiritual leaders who have seen us living in such a way use a hammer because there is no other way to change us. And this is called the Moha Mudgara. Bhajagovindam is also called the Moha Mudgara, a hammer that breaks our delusions. Why is this hammering required? Because the glory of a human being is that all of us have a free will. But when you are conditioned, we do not exert our free will. We do exactly the way we have been programmed. And now this text will tell us to see how we are programmed in different aspects of our lives. Our scriptures, our teachers are addressing those people who are willing to accept that they have a free will, not only willing to accept that they have a free will, willing to make that change. I know, but to make that change requires a big jump. So that is what we are looking for. Can we be therefore vulnerable to this teaching? Not only vulnerable, vulnerable means very sensitive, very open, very receptive, and also be strong enough and be courageous enough to be able to make those changes which are required. Ultimately, what this teaching is to help us, to give us a clear direction in our life. Are we looking for something finite or are we looking for infinite? When we say Bhaja Govindam, it means can Govinda, can the Lord, can be Brahman, can Moksha be our destination? Normally, what are we trained to make more money, to become more rich, become more famous, to become more accomplished? But we realize that Dharma, Artha, Kama does not lead us to fulfillment, and it is the Parama Purushartha as given in the Kathopanishad. Can we move from prayas to shreyas? Those of us who choose worldly goals are called mudaha, are called the foolish ones. And this scripture, this text helps us to become viveki, to become wise people. The big question is for us, is God my means or is God my goal? What does this mean? If I am sick, if I am going through a relationship problem, if I'm going through certain financial problem, then what do? I approach God, I do all kinds of prayers and pujas to tell God, God, I'm in difficulty, can you help me? That means finance, health, relationship is my goal and God is my service provider. And every time we pray, what do we pray for? We pray for all the worldly things. This text, the Bhaja Govindam, makes a big shift between can God now be the goal and the world is the means. What do you mean the world means is the means? Every time I go through difficulty, whenever there's a roadblock, whenever somebody says no, whenever there is an insult, it was Kunti, who was one of the most courageous devotees, who made the statement when she was taking leave of Krishna. She says, you know, Krishna, please give us difficulty, because whenever I'm in difficulty, I will be able to remember you. So Bhaja Govindam is something that gives a hammering to help us to shift from God being a means or a service provider to God being the goal. This world is unpredictable, it is uncontrollable, it is unsustainable, and therefore you will see what each of our teaching, each of these verses will tell us, can we shift to that stable entity, and that stable entity is Govinda. This opening verse, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Modamate, can this be our daily prayer? Our opening verse will be by Dr. Vasumati. Over to you, Dr. Vasumati.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamate, Samprapte Sannihite Kale, Nahi Rakshati Dukring Karane. Tatparya, O deluded one, contemplate on Govinda. When the appointed time of death arrives, grammar, that is worldly pursuits, will not save you. As mentioned by Mr. Venkatesh Prasad, there's a story related to the composition of the hymn. It is said that Adi Shankaracharya, accompanied by his disciples, was walking along the ghats in Varanasi one day when he came across an aged scholar memorizing the rules of Sanskrit grammar of Panini. Inspired by this situation, taking pity on him and similar such individuals, Adi Shankaracharya composed this hymn advising humans to not waste time on grammar, but to turn the mind towards God in devotion, which could save one from the vicious cycle of birth and death. The first verse is considered as a pallavi, a chorus, to be chanted at the end of each of the subsequent verse for emphasis. Next slide, sir. The term Bhajagovindam is repeated thrice here, signifying seeking and contemplation of the Lord through the three means of Kaya, Vacha, and Manasa, that is, deeds, words, and thought. Next slide, sir. In the whirlpool of samsara, one must find a firm support. There's nothing in this world that is permanent, neither worldly pleasures nor pain. Govinda is a stable anchor holding on to which one can face samsara, says Adi Shankara. Next slide, sir. The word Govinda has several derivations. It is the name of Lord Vishnu, we all know. Govinda is the Brahman of the Upanishads. Seeking is seeking identity with that Brahman. Go being taken as the cows, Krishna, the Lord, was the protector of the cows. Go also means the earth. As in Varaha Avatara, the Lord was the protector of the earth. Go also means sense organs. Govinda is the Lord, the Antaryami, who blesses all the sense organs and makes them sentient. Therefore, seek Govinda, one permanent, reliable relationship. Next slide, sir. The reason for seeking Govinda, Adi Shankaracharya gives here as Kala, the time is constantly operating. Yamadharma Raja is around the corner, getting closer and closer to take away oneself or one's dear ones. At that time, the only thing that gives security is Govinda. Next slide, sir. To hold on to the Lord at the time of our death, one needs to practice this from now itself. Remembering God at the time of death is not possible unless one remembers God constantly throughout one's life. We can't have the Lord's Namasmarana in the evening of hours of our life if we don't practice it from the beginning. We will have Lord's thoughts effortlessly at the time of our departure if it has been interwoven with the warp and weft of our existence. When the end arrives, there's no one else other than the Lord to protect us. Next slide, sir. The term bhaja means to worship. However, the usage here does not refer to a mere ritualistic routine. The true bhajan is seeking our identity with God, like Mirabai did. If one succeeds in this, there's no longer any fear, especially either fear or death of samsara. Next slide, sir. In this verse, Adi Shankaracharya says, any knowledge of material sciences, that is apara vidya, like the grammar, may serve as a means to attain spiritual knowledge, but they are not an end in themselves and will never lead us to Brahman. Apara vidya is incomplete without para vidya. Thus, both are complementary. One does not understand this complementary nature, then he becomes a mudamate, a deluded one, says Adi Shankaracharya. So he asks us to correct our wrong understanding. It is like the one being busy cooking that he does not have time to eat. Apara vidya is sadhanam and para vidya is sadhyam. Without apara vidya, para vidya is not possible. Without para vidya, apara vidya is utterly incomplete. Apara vidya is the means for para vidya, which is the end. Hari Om. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Vasumati, for a very nice introduction of the Bhaja Govinda. Essentially, as you said, let Govinda, let the Lord be our goal. And if this can be our everyday prayer, then samprapte, when the end comes, it is not going to be agonizing. Our whole attitude towards death is going to be different because we have experienced this every day of our life. The next verse will be by Dr. Satyanarayana. Over to you, Dr. Satya.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The verse 2 goes like this. Mudha jahihi dhanagama trishnam Kuru sadbuddhim manasi vrittishnam. Yalla bhase nija karmopatam vittam tena vinodaya chittam. Let us go word meaning. Mudha is O fool. Jahi ihi is give up here in this world. Dhana is wealth. Agama is coming. Trishnam is the thirst or the desire. Kuru means do. Sadbuddhi is good awareness. Manasi in the mind. Vrittishnam is a state without desires. Yalla bhase is yat labhase, whatever you obtain. Nija karma, one's duty. Upattam, obtained. Vittam is wealth. Tena, by that. Vinodaya is recreate or be happy. Chittam is mind. So the verse meaning goes like this. O foolish one, give up your craving to amass wealth. Be desirous in your mind to act with good sense. Whatever you obtain by your duty, be content with that earning. Adi Shankaracharya emphasizes the importance of devotion for God as a means of spiritual development and to liberation from cycle of birth and death. He gives a list of strict warning, distraction or traps of worldly objects and pleasures. We have seen in our earlier sessions that materialistic desire is accompanied by bandhakatvam, atriptikatvam and dukkha mishritam. In this verse, we talk about delusion of wealth. Delusion is that everything can be accomplished with money. Another delusion is looking down upon money. Scriptures say avoid both. You should have a balanced vision with regard to money and its role. Once you make a philosophy in life, you live that philosophy. If you say money is everything or wealth is happiness, you get trapped in generation of wealth. Give up craving for wealth, become dispassionate and develop right thinking. Wealth cannot give us happiness. If wealth can give happiness, all rich should be happy and all poor should be miserable. But that is not how it is. Money can give external comfort unquestionably. Money can buy bed, but it cannot get us sleep. Happiness is the inner condition of mind. Thus, there is no cause-effect relation or karya-karana sambandha between wealth and happiness. Money cannot give us security also. On the other hand, it can bring problems of robbery. So security also is inner condition of mind. Likewise, money cannot give contentment. The wealthy are not always fulfilled. On the other hand, the poor may be fulfilled. Fulfillment also is internal condition of the mind. Never acquire money for happiness, security, or contentment. Next slide, sir. The Lord has given each and every person some talent, and whatever talent you are blessed with, you must use it fully. Use it for the service of all rather than selfish purpose. It is not my talent. It is just flowing through me. Whatever you earn legitimately, be content with that. Happiest person is one who is content. He is considered the richest man. Money cannot give you yogakshemam. Therefore, bhaja govindam. Hari Om.
Thank you, Dr. Satya, for giving us a nice explanation of this verse, which tells us about the delusion of wealth, so that wealth can be the means and wealth is not the goal. As we study the Bhaja Govindam, it is also an opportunity to study the meaning of each word, and so indirectly your Sanskrit vocabulary can be improved as we study each verse of the Bhaja Govindam. Our next presentation is by Vidya Prabhu. Over to you, Vidya.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Bhaja Govindam is meant to make people gradually understand the downside of overindulgence of things of the world, while stressing the importance of attaining self-realization. Shankaracharya, in this particular verse, he cues the student of his powerful fascination, that is his instinctive hunger for flesh. The verse meaning goes like this: seeing the full bosom of young maidens and their navel, don't fall a prey to the maddening delusions. This is but a modification of flesh and fat. Think well thus in your mind again and again. Shankaracharya here comes to the topic of kama or desire in this verse. The desire is of two types, agantuka kama and swabhavika kama. Agantuka kama or the acquired desire is not a universal desire and it depends upon time, place and personality of the individual. Swami Paramarthananda gives the example of a person born in a family of vegetarians, later may choose to become a non-vegetarian and vice versa. The second type of desire, which is the swabhavika kama, that is the instinctive desire or the natural desire, the desire for peace, happiness and security, instinctive desires like hunger, thirst, mutual attraction between a male and a female, all this comes under the swabhavika kama. A person should learn to understand and handle both agantuka kama as well as swabhavika kama with viveka shakti. In swabhavika kama, one does not have a choice nor resistance as one is not responsible for its existence, but there is a choice with regard to the activation of swabhavika kama. Therefore, in the first two lines, Shankaracharya talks about viveka as the first method of handling this swabhavika kama. Therefore, he says, Nari Stanabhara Nabhi Desham, the full bosom of young maidens and their navel. Moha Vesham Ma Agaha, may you not get into delusion. Thus, in the second half of this line of the verse, Shankaracharya talks about the physical body, the gross personality, which is subject to aging and distraction, which can give only sthula anitya ananda, whereas human beings have got a unique privilege to work for a far superior ananda, which is sukshma nitya ananda. Only human beings can transcend this swabhavika kama by discovering the higher atmananda. In the next line, manasi vichintaya, repeatedly, may you discriminate within this sthula anitya ananda and sukshma nitya ananda. The discrimination should be etat, this is, that is, the physical body of male or female, mamsa, that is flesh, vasa, fat or marrow, adi, etc. Vikaram is a modification which age, perish and decompose. Manasi, in your mind, vichintaya, think well, varam, varam, again and again. Thus compare Atmananda and Vishayananda, make Vishayananda irrelevant, which is the second method of sublimation. First, use discrimination and next sublimation to transcend to Nitya Atma Ananda. Bhagavan Raman Maharshi tells his devotees that Abhyasa and Vairagya, that is practice and dispassion, are both important for spiritual advancement. This particular verse offers guidance in both these areas. Thank you, Doctor. Hari Om.
Thank you, Vidya. This was a nice explanation of this verse, which tells us that it is not wrong to have desires because many of these desires are instinctive and natural. But then the mind has the method of propagating it. And that is where a human discrimination or the human viveka will be there to tell us, is it good for me or not? So many of us are victims of this and do not know that we have that free will, we have that power to be able to overcome. Very often it requires prayer, power, and higher power of grace to be able to get out of this trap of swabhavika kama. And that is possible through satsanga, through Guru Shastra Viveka, that it is possible to move from this very, very powerful Vishayananda to Atmananda. We have another important verse by Vinayakan. Over to you, Vinayakan, please.
Namaste, Hari Om, Sri Gurubhyo Namah. So the fourth verse goes like this. Nalini Dalagada jalam aditaralam tadvad jeevitam atishaya chapalam viddivyadhyabhimana grastam logam shokahadam cha samastam. The literal meaning is life is unstable like a water drop trembling on a lotus leaf. Life is filled with sorrow due to disease and anxiety. In this verse, Bhagavan Shankaracharya points out that we have got a very limited active time period for accomplishing this ultimate goal, and therefore do not try to postpone this pursuit thinking that I can start spirituality later because the total life period itself is short. Our life is very unpredictable and fragile, like a water drop floating on the top of a lotus leaf. In a lotus pond, when the wind disturbs the water enters on the top of the leaf and a few drops stay. It is never steady because the wind is disturbing the leaf, and because of this, droplet also in constant motion. Any time it may go away. Similarly, our life is also so fragile. Therefore, Shankaracharya says, Nalini Dalagada Jalam Aditaralam. Just as a water drop is very, very fragile, Nalini Dalam means lotus leaf. Gadam means situated on. Jalam means the water drop. Aditaralam means highly fragile. Tadvad means exactly like that. Jeevidam Adishaya Chapalam. Life is also highly unpredictable, and even when death is far away, even when we are in youth, then also the conditions are not always ideal. Then says Samastam Logam Vyadhyabhimana Grastam Shokahadam. Know that the whole world is seized by disease and pride and devastated by grief. Loga means all human beings are always disturbed by one pain or another. So the mind is always disturbed by some pain or the other caused by Vyadhi or Abhimanam. Vyadhi means physical injury like sick, Sthula Sharira injury. And Abhimana means Sukshma Shariram or mental hurt or injury. In fact, as we grow old, more than physical hurt, mental hurt will be more. And from the first few verses that we have seen till now, we can understand that main teaching that Shankaracharya wants to give in these verses. Whatever we have in our life is a gift, and that too a temporary gift from the Lord. And the Lord has the right to take away anything from us at any time that the Lord wants, even without advance notice, and since it is a temporary gift from the Lord does not expect us to own anything as ours. We are only allowed to use them in our life, and we have to use these as means for the spiritual growth and the accomplishment of the spiritual goal. If we have successfully done that, whenever the Lord comes to take away those things, we can very, very happily and comfortably return them to the Lord, saying that, oh Lord, I am grateful to you for whatever gift you have given. I have utilized them properly. Now I am ready to return them to you with a note of thanks. I will not curse the Lord for taking the things away from me, because I have properly made use of them, and therefore I can happily return with thanks. The lotus leaf has a deeper Vedantic significance here. The lotus grows and perishes in water. It can be seen as the manifestation of water. Water represents Brahman and the lotus, the creation. The unstable water drop represents Jivatma, which eventually merges with Brahman. The return of the trembling drop is represented at the Mahavakyam, Tad Tvam Asi. Hari Om. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Vinayakan, for a nice explanation of another very powerful hammering verse, which clearly tells us all the good things in the world that we have, our money, power, position, all the loved ones in our life, and our own physical body, our own health is there for the time being. When it is going to be taken away, we never know. And therefore, let us remember that while we have it, let us relish it and make such full use of it. That is why it is so rightly said, live as if you are going to die today, work as if you're going to live forever. Our work is going to last long before we leave this body. Whatever we have done today is recorded, and it is possible that this recorded words will be there for posterity, even though we may not be there. So live as if you're going to die today and work as if you're going to live forever. Vinayakan, I have a question. You don't have to answer it. You give a very nice example of that drop on that lotus leaf. And when it falls back into the pond, it is the Jivatma, Paramatma, Aikyam. But let us see that drop which is sitting on the leaf. If the drop is able to understand that I am already water, I don't have to merge with that pond to reach that Aikyam. That is why in Vedanta, it is all that you need is that understanding that even when I am on the leaf, even when the leaf is so uncertain, even when my life is very unsure about what is there, I am already that which I can possibly be. And therefore, whatever happens to my body, whatever happens around me should not affect me if I have this understanding. Dr. Kiran, your next verse, please.
Thank you. Hari Om Gurubhyo Namaha. Bhajagovindam Yavad Vitto Parjana Saktaha. This verse deals with the delusion of relationship after dealing with transiency of life in previous verse. It means as long as one is healthy and wealthy, so long our dependents and family flock to you. But when becomes old, no one even bothers to have a word with you. This is a template for many movies and also a familiar scene in many houses. Next slide, please. After studying seeming contradiction in our higher Upanishadic level, we are now examining life as it seems. Shankara holds mirror to show the world and life as it looks. Here, he examines family and conditional love. True love is unconditional. People get confused attachment with love. Delusion and of relationship and dependency is dealt here. Knowing this temporary nature, Vedic ashrama lifestyle is prescribed. Like after Gruhastha, one take up Vanaprastha and then Sannyasa ashrama, where we gradually reduce what is Swamiji refers to as port, possessions, obligations, relationship, and transaction. Now, instead, even at 70, 80, people are dependent and make others dependent by saying, I'm not giving or sharing my property, etc. This is a beautiful story of Yajnavalkya and Maitreya. Yajnavalkya, an enlightened man, in his twilight years, wanted to pursue exclusively knowledge and sannyasa lifestyle. So he called both of his wives and said, I'm going to distribute all the property, possessions, everything, and go and seek the jnanam. So his wife Maitreya says, can I join you? So he asks why. She says, so much you have worked and earned all this wealth. You are giving this and to earn something else. So that something is more worthy than this. So I want that. So she becomes disciple of Yajnavalkya. In the Samvada, there's a beautiful verse which says, Nava hare patyut kamaha pati priyo bhavati atmanastu kamaya pati priyo bhavati. It is not the sake of husband that he is loved, but it is the sake of wife or one's own self is loved. So one does not love wealth, people, or any possessions for that thing, but it is for themselves and it is for their happiness. Here it doesn't mean that we have to give up all the wealth and everything, but what he says is we have to expand this I. Instead of the small body, we should expand to include friends, family, and the whole universe. Then this whole life is worth living. Next slide, please. So similar to this tiger, it seems tiger teaches its cub to hunt, and as it grows, it allows it to expand its territory and move up. And once it is independent enough, it leaves and goes. This is how we also should be. As we move from the Grihastha Ashrama, we should slowly wean off, reduce our possessions, and move towards spirituality. Yeah, knowing God is the only reliable and permanent support, and we have to hold on to Him and enjoy life. God is the essence, sap, juice, or rasam. Without ras, the sugarcane is very dry. So add Govinda Rasa to your life and enjoy life in living. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kiran, for giving us a very nice explanation of this verse, which is, as you said, is the script for a lot of movies, and it is true in so many lives. it looks so very negative because we see this happening again and again. And somebody has said, you know, never expect happiness from your children or for that matter from your spouse or from anybody else, because we need to be able to derive that from ourselves. We do not know. And this sense of dependence on others for our happiness or fulfillment is the cause of all our problems. That is what this particular verse says. That is why Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja. Next verse is by Pallavi. Over to you, Pallavi.
Bhaja Govindam. Yavat pavano nivasati dehi. Yavat prashchati kushlam gehe. Gatavati vayu deha paaye. Bharya bhibayati tasmin kaye. The shloka meaning is, as long as the body breathes, people at home inquire about your well-being, kushlam. When the breath departs the body, even one's own spouse or loved ones, bharya, fears that very body. Adi Shankaracharya reveals many bitter truths in this grantha. In this shloka, he removes the highly prevalent delusion that the body identifies as the self. The deluded one works hard to nurture one's body as though it is oneself. However, there is a supporting principle behind the body, which one must seek. This is the Atma, the soul, or called Karana Sharira. Without the Atma, the body is insignificant. The physical body is the manifested Atma. Once life is gone, everybody wants to dispose the body at the earliest. But the Atma is all pervading. It finds another body to manifest itself. So should one neglect the body? No, the body must be used to further one's spiritual goals. In fact, it is an important instrument in our quest to evolve. It must be nurtured, maintained, and well taken care of, but not at the cost of spiritual development. The body must be respected as an instrument to attain our spiritual goal of self-purification or moksha. So when the time comes to shred the body, one does it with grace as the purpose is fulfilled. Unfortunately, we have become a generation of body worshippers. Our problem is that a majority of our lives' exertions are geared towards satisfying only our physical needs and comforts. I think a modern day analogy of Atma and body can be a SIM card in a phone. However costly or branded or sophisticated is the phone unit, it is insignificant without a SIM card. Once a SIM card is inserted in the phone, the device becomes active with recorded data, which is fed by the user. Once, when the handset goes bad, the SIM card gets another handset. The physical body of the phone does not affect the workings of the information saved on the SIM card. All phones provide the same utility. All phones provide the same functionality without a SIM card. But once a SIM card is placed in the phone, the utility of the phone changes and holds an identity. No longer is the SIM seen. We interact with the phone. A higher significance is given to the phone in hand, while the SIM is doing its job in the background. Here in this analogy, I would say SIM is the Atma, Karana Sharira, phone, the physical body, Sthula Sharira, SIM data, the subtle body, Shukshma Sharira, which is made up of consciousness, mind, intellect, ego, and also there's another example that I would like to state is a ceiling fan with or without an electric power connection. In this analogy, the physical fan is, or the object is the body. The motor or the regulator is the subtle programmed to rotate the fan at different speeds, and the power supply is like the Atma. The top two fail if there is no power supply provided to the unit. Thank you.
Thank you, Pallavi. But there are certain corrections to be made. The first correction, you give a very nice example of the body and the SIM card. Now, what is this SIM card example that we can give from our understanding of Advaita Vedanta at the time of death? Now, all of us in the medical field sometimes are with patients who are dying, and then we wait for the moment to be able to certify that the person is dead by looking at the various parameters. Very often the death happens in an intensive care unit. And so because the heart is beating, the body is still warm, but still we have certain parameters to say that the person is now dead, and continuing the person on a ventilator is not going to help because the body will start rotting. What is that key moment? That key moment, be very clear, is when, like the SIM card or the Sukshma Sharira leaves the body. The moment the Sukshma Sharira leaves the body begins to decay, comparable to some extent by the SIM card which carries all our data. It is a SIM card that keeps moving, and then it comes and attaches itself to another telephone where the cycle of Punarapi Jananam, Puranarapi Maranam goes on. Remember one thing, never confuse that SIM card with the Atma. The Atma is all pervading. Remember, Swamiji always says consciousness is not part, product, property of the body. It is an independent entity which is all pervading. And when the body drops, consciousness continues to exist, but this consciousness cannot manifest for want of a medium. The medium now is the SIM card that has separated. So the body is there, Atma is still very much there. Atma is all pervading. So it took me some time to realize that when a dead body is there, Atma is still there because Atma is all pervading. Now, the SIM card or the subtle body, also the causal body, is what is that which has a long life that goes into Punarapi Jananam. We have one more verse which Ullas will be talking about, where we get a little more clarity that we have lived so many lives, we have had so many parents, and therefore bodies are different, the SIM card is different, and the third entity, the all-powerful and living, is the Atma Tattva. And our whole vision is to move from this gross body, subtle body, that's why this Panchakosha Viveka, to identify that I'm not this perishing, limited, traveling substance, but I am that Atma Tattva. If I'm a mixture of both, why claim the little self to be myself? Important verse to understand genesis of death, this beautiful verse by Adi Shankara. Sachin, please, next verse.
Hari Om, Om Gurubhyo Namaha. The verse goes, Balastavaha Kridasaktaha Tarunastavat Tarunisaktaha Vruddhastavat Chintasaktaha Parame Brahmani Kopinasaktaha. So in this verse, the meaning is about how in the entire life which we go through, we forget the importance of Brahman, the higher self. With an example here, we always, as I am also studying scriptures for a long time with Sir, we have our friends and near ones asking, don't you think that these scriptures are to be studied at the end of your life, not at this young age? So to emphasis on that, I will tell a story. A young monk entered in the Gurukula, where he thought he has been entered, but he felt like he should have fulfilled his duties towards his parents, towards his family, and then he should have entered to learn the higher self. The teacher took him for a walk. There came a river. He just patiently waited for a long time. The student asked, "Dear teacher, why don't we cross this river?" He said, "No, I'm waiting for the entire water to run out and let the river dry. Then I will take a walk through the river. I'll cross the river." The student was amused and he said, "How can it happen like that?" So here the teacher says, same way, our samsara rupi life will never dry up. It will always be going on, revolving around ourselves. We have to take the ship, which is of the scriptures, the understanding of scriptures, and cross this to the other bank. Same way, the shloka, next slide, sir, please. Here the shloka also emphasizes us that we take things for granted. Like in the Bala Avastha, we always are playful. One is always attracted to opposite gender in the Taruna Avastha, the adulthood. In the Vruddha Avastha, or in the old age, he is always in his problems. But in none of this lifetime, he ever thinks about the God, the higher understanding about your own self. We always take things granted. It is very clearly seen. Why? Because every one of us, or excluding few people of us, at 40s to 50s, we have problem while reading the near vision, which we call as presbyopia. Next slide, sir. In 50 to 60, I know many would have joint trouble. 70 to 80, we would have hearing loss. And more than 70, many would have lost all the teeth. So what does actually this mean? This means that over a period of time, God is taking one of the organs one by one. But still, in the modern life, we take the help of technology. We get the best set of spectacles. We get the best set of joints, and do involve ourselves. Let the five senses drag us away from the higher self. Here, what we should do is, through our understanding of the scriptures, always look inside, within, and start as soon as possible. Now, next slide, please. What would happen if one takes the studies or the understanding about scriptures earlier? Like in childhood, we generally have Swadhyaya. We have this thread ceremony earlier in the life, so that a child understands between what is about our scriptures, generally started by his father or some elderly person in his family. So what happens? This child would have a good adolescent. Next slide, please, sir. He will be so focused, he or she would be so focused in his life about that point of time when the studies are important. The understanding about self is important. He will be completely ready for the next journey of life, that is adulthood. He will take all the responsibility well, he will take pride, and he will fulfill all his duties accordingly. Next slide, sir. So this adult then in his old age would be complete. He will be a Jivan Mukta if he has gone through the understanding of his own self, that is Brahman. Then he will not have any regrets or any problems in his old age. That is why we should start this early. Next slide, sir. So if someone is late, there is nothing called as late in understanding scriptures. Swamiji here says, if not this Janma, you will have to take another Janma. If not that Janma, you may have to go to the other Janma, so and so forth. That's how the cycles of Janma and Marana continues for a Muda Mate. So this will be told in the next verse. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sachin, for a nice explanation on the importance of coming into spiritual life, into the spiritual world early in life. So important. Many of us who have dabbled with spirituality early have a lot of people criticizing you. Why are you into it at this stage of your life? Now this is just the other way. Earlier, the better, as you so nicely brought it. We come to the last presentation today, an important verse by Ullas. Over to you, Ullas.
Hari Om, sir. Shankaracharya has been very kind that he is hammering all these delusions out of us. And in that series, the next one is the delusion of family. We have all this notion that I am a father to my son. In relation to my wife, I am a husband. In relation to my father, I am a son. But all these things are actually notional. What happens when my wife goes away? What happens to that husband I? When my father goes away, what happens to that son I? When my son goes away, what happens to that father I? Nothing happens because they were never real. But what happens if I go away? All the three go away. So the principle is that all this multiplicity is just imagined, but the reality is only one. So he starts with Kate Kanta Kaste Putraha. Who is this wife? Next slide, sir. Who is this wife? Who is this son? in which I think that I am a son or I am a husband. This is not real. And sansaro ayam ativa vichitraha. This world is very, very strange and mysterious, in which I have always been thinking that, oh, I am here and I will make so much of difference. And what will happen to my family? What will happen to this world when I go away? The world was surviving even before we were here, and it's going to go on fine when we are not here. So this attachment with this family and all is another series of delusions that we have, which we must not. Rather, what is important for us to actually contemplate upon is kasya tvam va kuta ayatah. Who am I? Where have I come from? This is something of substance that I must, or you must, oh brother, actually contemplate on. And once we do that, what we realize is there will be three types of eyes. The first one, Swamiji says, is the Mukhyatma, my real nature, who I actually am. The next one would be Mithyatma. When I say I am fat or thin, I'm tall or short, I'm intelligent or dumb, all these things are Mithyatma. And the third one is Gaunatma. I am brother, father, mother, sister, husband, wife. These are all Gaunatma. And when we see who actually becomes miserable, then we would realize it is the Gaunatma, the mother, father, all these relative worlds. The relative world, these relations, these are the ones which get troubled. So the general person would say, oh, why all these problems for me? Why there are so many problems to me? But a seeker actually must think about who is getting all these problems. Is it the mother? Is it the father? Am I the husband here who is having this problem? And once we know that this is the person who's having the problem, we already know that this is not real. The reality is the man or the woman. These all other things are just relative, imagined relativities. And once we do that, all these things go away. In whole Vedanta is about, as Sir said, there is so much of conditioning on us. So we have to clear our identification of who we really are. Then is where we can then move to the next path. And why all this is happening really is because we have a strong attachment to this body. That is where this whole thing originates. Because of this body, I consider this is my mother. Because of this body, I consider this is my son and all that thing. But I don't understand who I really am. And that is the thing that we need to shed. In the next slide, we would see that I have this current Janma, which is again an nth Janma, in which I know that this is my mother. And then I always feel this is my mother. But it is possible that in my last Janma, I was a cockroach. Or maybe in the next Janma, I might be a buffalo. Then all these three different mothers will also be my mothers. Like that, there have been millions of my mothers before. And there might be millions more, hopefully not. But then which mother is my mother? This is all because I currently identify with this body as I. And that is what we must shed so that we can understand who I really am. Thank you, sir. Hari Om.
Thank you, Ullas, for giving us explanation, and a very nice explanation of a very important verse, which Bhagwan Ramana always addresses when anybody goes with this problem and they approach Bhagwan and says, I have a problem. And Bhagwan makes you think, who is this I who has a problem? Is it the role as a father, as a husband, as a, it is the role that is suffering and not the person who's playing the role. And the more you make this distinction, then life becomes a wonderful drama where whatever role we are given by circumstances, we play our role 100% and go into the green room of your life and you realize all the time you are someone other than this role. This understanding can be possible only through Guru Shastra Upadesha. This comes when we become very sensitive and become vulnerable to the teaching. And this can possible when you become a Bhakta. We will conclude these sessions, each class, by the verse rendering of these 8 verses. I will hand you over to Venkatesh Prasad, who will take charge of the chanting. But whenever these verses are chanted, now we know the meanings of all these verses, but let there be that bhava of bhakti, which allows Bhagwan to work on us internally so that these meanings of these verses can make an impact on us. Over to you, Venkatesh.
Thank you, sir. Friends, after enjoying the taste of nectar in the first 8 flowers, let us now enjoy the musical flavor of these verses. I request Srimati Indumati to kindly sing these verses for us. Indu ma'am.
भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज मूढमते सम्प्राप्ते सन्निहिते काले नहि नहि रक्षति डुक्रुङ्करणे मूढजहिः धनागमतृष्णां कुरु सद्बुद्धिं मनसि वितृष्णां यल्लभसे निज कर्मोपातं वित्तं तेन विनोदय चित्तम् नारीस्तनभर नाभिदेशं दृष्ट्वा मागा मोहावेशं ये तन्मां सवसादिविकारं मनसि विचिन्तय वारं वारम् नलिनीदलगत जलमतितरलं तद्वज्जीवितम् अतिशयचपलं विद्युव्याधिभिमानग्रस्तं लोकं शोकहतं च समस्तं यावद्वित्तो पार्जनसक्तः स्थावन्निज परिवारो रक्तः पश्चाज्जीवति जर्जरदेहे वार्तां कोऽपि न पृच्छति गेहे यावत् पवनो निवसति देहे तावत् पृच्छति कुशलं गेहे गतवती वायो देहापाये भार्या बिभ्यति तस्मिन् काये बालस्तावत् क्रीडासक्तः तरुणस्तावत् तरुणीसक्तः वृद्धस्तावत् चिन्तासक्तः परमे ब्रह्मणि कोऽपि न सक्तः काते कान्ता कस्ते पुत्रः संसारोऽयम् अतीव विचित्रः कस्य त्वं कः कुत आयातः तत्त्वचिन्तय तदिह भ्रातः भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज मूढमते गोविन्दं भज मूढमते.
Thank you, Indu ma'am, for that soulful chanting. Thank you, friends. That brings us to the end of the study of first 8 verses of Bhaja Govindam. Next Friday, let us study some more verses. Before that, let's meet on Monday, same time for Viveka Chudamani. Please log in by 6:45 p.m. local time. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om.